Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first of Data's webinar series for 2025. For those that may not be familiar with us and joining for the first time, Data is a market research firm active in the tech community for nearly 20 years. We serve the tech community helping companies make data-backed, high-impact, complex decisions with confidence. We will continue this webinar series throughout the year, so do stay tuned. And today we have two of our research analysts here with us. Bleona Bita, I just destroyed your name again tonight. And well, Bleona, who's one of our research analysts, and Alvaro Ruiz. I promise I'll take care of that next time around, Bleona. We will each will discuss a topic taken from our State of the Developer Nation study we published towards the end of last year. These reports are completely free and available for anyone who wants to. Just go to our website. You can log on and download anything. We run these Developer Nation reports every year and have a ton of other free research available for you from our website. So do visit and get access to everything. So Bleona will discuss with us who's using chatbots and what are they doing with them. While Alvaro will be looking at exploring developer adoption implementation of network APIs. Before we hand off to Bleona, a little bit of housekeeping. We will be open for questions. We will be doing all questions at the end, after both presentations. And you can add your questions in the live chat, and we will be monitoring and collecting them from you. Okay, without further ado, Bleona, on to you.
Thank you, Ms. Kula. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so I believe you're seeing my screen. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Bleona, and I'm a Senior Market Research Analyst at Data. I'm excited to share with you some insights from our Developer Nation survey on developers' use of AI chatbots for problem solving. So over the past year, we've seen some notable shifts in how developers engage with AI chatbots, and in today's session, we will explore the adoption trends, variations by experience levels, region, and role. So in Q1 of 2024, Data surveyed over 9,000 developers with one of the many goals being to understand how they use AI chatbots for different use cases, but in this specific case for problem solving. And then in Q3 of 2024, we followed up with another survey where we tracked this evolution of adoption trends over the last 6 months. Again, the data comes from our Developer Nation survey, which covers developers across various experience levels, industries, and geographies. So now let's explore how developers are using AI chatbots to solve problems. So according to our survey, a considerable share of those who are involved in technology projects have adopted AI chatbots across all major use cases, so problem solving, learning, and research. And while we see that adoption rates for learning and research have remained rather stable in the last 6 months, the share of those using AI chatbots for problem solving has increased from 40% to 45%. So this shift suggests that AI chatbots are not just a supplementary tool, but increasingly a core component of the developer workflow, assisting with stuff like troubleshooting and technical queries. So this likely also reflects a broader industry-wide shift towards AI-assisted problem solving. And there were quite some advancements of AI models that happened after Q1 of 2024, like, for example, Google introducing Gemini 1.5 Pro, or with the launch of GPT-4o edition, and generally the improved ability of AI integration with developer tools such as GitHub Copilot or Gemini Code Assist. So this increase can be largely attributed to these efforts of improvement. So now we focus on only on the use of AI chatbots for problem solving, where we saw the most notable increase. So let's take a look at how that has changed based on the type of developer involvement with technology projects. So here we are comparing those who are involved with technology projects professionally, as a hobby, and as students. And we see, generally we see an upward trend for all of these groups. However, the most notable increase was among non-professionals, so both hobbyists and students. Among hobbyists, we see that the usage of AI chatbots for problem solving has increased from 39% to 44% in just 6 months, while for students it increased from 41% to 46%. So this also indicates that the ease of access and the instant responses that are coming from AI chatbots have made them particularly useful for the early career developers, so non-professionals that are able to experiment and solve problems quickly. And when looking at students specifically, this trend also suggests that there is a growing integration of AI tools in educational settings, where chatbots are maybe used for tutoring, for research, and as a supplementary educational resource. And we will see this being confirmed later on as well. So now we have distributions by role type, where we categorize the roles into four main buckets: technical developer roles, management roles, IT operations, non-technical, and then other smaller roles. So our analysis shows that the technical group's adoption of AI chatbots for problem solving has increased from 47% to 51%. So AI chatbots are being utilized in technical environments for different tasks such as coding assistance, debugging, or technical support. And then when we're looking within this group of technical roles, we saw that the biggest jump was among data and business analysts from 38% to 47%, which is also likely due to the complexity of data analytics tasks and the need for quicker access to insights. So they likely use AI chatbots for automating data queries, for generating reports, and even advanced predictive analytics. Likewise, we see an increase in adoption among embedded software developers, engineers. So an increase from 43% to 50%, likely driven by the growing sophistication of embedded systems, where chatbots might be used for streamlining, debugging processes, for troubleshooting hardware-software interaction, among other use cases. And it's worth noting also that programmers, software developers, and data scientists, machine learning developers are also increasingly turning to AI chatbots for problem solving, as we see the general upward trend. Going back to the categories again, we see that 43% of those involved in IT operations are using AI chatbots for problem solving, and this is up from 38% 6 months prior. So they're becoming valuable tools in maintaining and managing IT infrastructure as well. Looking into specific IT operations roles, we see that this trend is really specifically for DevOps engineers, specialists, system administrators, and database administrators. So DevOps engineers saw the largest rise from 41% to 50% in 6 months. This is also could be explained by the increasing complexity of CI/CD pipelines, cloud infrastructure management, and automated deployments, where AI chatbots can really assist with debugging and organizing the overall developer workflow. System administrators also experienced quite substantial growth from 36% to 43%, as chatbots provide quick solutions for server maintenance, for configuration issues, and troubleshooting repetitive system errors, which really help developers with reducing downtime and enhancing efficiency overall. And similarly, we have database administrators who saw the usage of AI chatbots climb from 42% to 48%. And this is possibly driven by AI's ability to assist, again, with query optimization, with performance monitoring, which are increasingly becoming more automated. And this growth across all of these IT operations roles suggests that AI chatbots are becoming really valuable for handling routine troubleshooting, for handling automation, and just general performance optimization in IT operations. Then back again to the categories, we see that the biggest increase is actually happening among non-technical roles, from 32% to 39%. This suggests that AI chatbots specifically, are becoming more intuitive and more user-friendly, which broadens their appeal beyond just purely technical circles. In particular, what we see is that there's a substantial increase in usage among product managers and those in marketing and sales positions, rising from 24% to 38% in 6 months. And this growth is likely driven by the increasing use of Gen AI and AI chatbots for content creation, which enables these teams to produce marketing materials, sales content, and overall handle customer communication. And speaking of this topic, we have just recently ran a qualitative research with 10 people in management positions within sales and marketing in tech companies who shared with us their experience on the adoption of generative AI for everyday tasks, including the challenges and the barriers that they face and how they see their roles progressing um, with the help of generative AI. And this report will be made available within a couple of weeks. So, to anyone who's interested to learn more, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter, and we will also add the link to the description right after this. So then the other role that we're seeing relying more and more on AI chatbots are researchers. Uh, this reliance has increased from 33% to 43%, reflecting AI's growing role in information retrieval, summarization, and hypothesis generation, all of which streamline the research process. And then we have non-computer data science students who also showed higher adoption, rising from 27% to 36%, again highlighting that AI chatbots are becoming a key educational tool for studying, writing assignments, and problem solving across various disciplines. And to remind you, we saw before that students overall saw quite a substantial increase in the usage of AI chatbots for problem solving. So it reiterates again the importance of AI chatbots in education as well. And finally, it's worth noting that technical writers saw growth from 38% to 45% as AI increasingly supports them with structuring content, with refining technical documentation, and ensuring consistency in terminology. So the overall trend suggests that AI chatbots are becoming more valuable across content-driven and analytical roles, improving efficiency in research and learning and professional writing as well. And then, so as AI chatbots are becoming more integral to modern development processes, we also notice a substantial rise in their adoption among beginners in tech projects. So as of Q3 of 2024, 42% of those with less than 3 years of experience in software development are turning to AI chatbots for problem solving, up from 35% in Q1 of 2024. So beginners are quick to include AI tools in their workflows, likely because they provide immediate guidance and assistance, and they generally help them with learning new concepts as they navigate these early development projects. Among those with medium or expert level experience, we don't really see any notable changes when it comes to trends, although we see that the usage of AI chatbots really peaks among those with more than a decade of experience at 47%. And this group likely benefits the most from AI chatbots given their experience in the field, which also helps them to ask more precise questions and do better prompts so they obtain highly targeted and more efficient solutions to their development problems. And then lastly, we noticed some differences between regions as well and how they use AI chatbots for problem solving, so the extent to which they use them. And we see that South America experienced the biggest jump from 44% to 56% in just 6 months, highlighting a quite steep and strong upward trend. And this can be attributed to several factors, like one of them being the increasing investment that we see in digital transformation across the continent. But also within our study, we see that half of the individuals involved in tech projects in South America have less than 3 years of experience in software development. And as we saw earlier, they are progressively turning to AI chatbots for problem solving. So that could be reflected here as well. And Western Europe is another noteworthy region, with adoption having increased from 47% to 53%. And this region also we know that they have been strongly focused on digital transformation initiatives, and there's a widespread integration of AI technologies within business operations. And other regions that are worth mentioning are also the Middle East and Africa, and also North America. In the Middle East, the usage of AI chatbots has increased from 41% to 47%, whereas in North America, we saw an increase from 39% to 45%. And that's it in terms of distribution. So if there's any questions, just leave them on the chat and we'll address them after the presentations. Thank you very much.
Leona. Thank you for that. And we really look forward to the Gen AI for Business study that you're about to publish. So we'll look forward to that. Now, moving into the next presentation, we have Alvaro, who'll be taking the floor on network APIs. And following Alvaro's presentation, we'll go into questions. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Muscula. I'm Alvaro, and I'm going to walk you through this presentation on network APIs, or what we call the new oil in the 5G economy. In this presentation, we will explore the adoption of these APIs among developers and how they are using them. The data from this report also comes from the 27th edition of our Developer Nation survey, and this presentation is based in the free SON report that you all can access, but we also included a couple of charts from our premium report on network APIs. For a bit of context on network APIs first, these are APIs that enable developers to easily access advanced network capabilities, and they have gained significant attention recently, especially since the unveiling of the GSMA Open Gateway initiative at the Mobile World Congress in 2023, which is basically an initiative to create a framework of common network APIs to provide universal access to operator networks. Since then, since that Mobile World Congress, more than 40 mobile operators representing 65% of the connections worldwide have joined this initiative. So yeah, it's been gaining a lot of momentum. Moreover, McKinsey published an article last year presenting network APIs as an opportunity for telecommunications companies to finally generate sizable returns on their massive 5G investments, forecasting a multi-billion-dollar market within the next 5 to 7 years. And that's basically why we call it the new oil of the 5G economy. But in reality, it all comes down to developer adoption, and that is what we will explore in this presentation. So yeah, enough of that, and let's dive into the data. So let's first take a look at the regional adoption of network APIs. For reference, the global average is at 8%, so around 8% of developers worldwide are using network APIs. When we break this down at a regional level, we find the highest adoption rates of network APIs in the Middle East and Africa at 11%, Greater China 10%, and North America also at 10%. Then we see East Asia and South Asia with average adoption at around 8%. And then finally, Western Europe, Oceania, South America, and Eastern Europe with below average adoption of network APIs. The really low adoption rate of network APIs in Eastern Europe of 2%, as you can see here, could be attributed, at least in part, to the high concentration of developers in the region focusing on web applications and backend services, with below average involvement in most other development areas. As a bit of a spoiler, as we will see this later in the presentation, these two areas, web applications and backend services, have the lowest adoption rates of network APIs. And of course, other factors such as the availability of network APIs in the region could also be contributing to their limited use here. Now, moving on to this next chart, we are still focusing on regions here, but looking at the data from a different perspective. So what we are seeing here is the regional distribution of those developers who are using network APIs, which corresponds to the light blue bars, and comparing it to the overall distribution of developers, the dark blue bars. This complements the chart that we just saw in the previous slide because it gives us an idea of the size of the different markets. For instance, we saw that the Middle East and Africa had the highest adoption rate of network APIs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be the biggest market for network APIs. In fact, as we can see here, it only houses 12% of all developers that are using network APIs, as this is directly related to the developer population size in each region. So examining this chart reveals that three regions, North America, Western Europe, and Greater China, collectively host the majority of developers. So if we add the percentages, it adds to 62, so actually nearly 2/3 of developers using network APIs are in these three regions, underscoring the importance of these markets in the network API landscape. North America not only leads in hosting the largest share of developers using network APIs, with a substantial 10 percentage point difference with Western Europe, but also stands out as the hotspot for the implementation. And why do I say this? Well, because when we compare the regional distribution of network API users to the overall developer population, we see that North America shows a concentration that is higher than its overall developer share, or what we could expect. Conversely, we see the opposite trend in Western Europe, indicating a lower interest in these technologies, which is further evidenced by the below average adoption rate of network APIs that we saw in the previous slide. Now, turning our attention to development areas, we see the highest adoption of network APIs among developers involved in industrial IoT projects, consumer electronic devices projects, and apps and extensions for third-party ecosystems. Obviously, the industrial IoT and consumer electronics could be related to their inherent need for robust connectivity and communication capabilities. For instance, as you know, in industrial IoT, machines and devices frequently need to communicate and exchange data in real time, which is crucial for activities or functionalities like monitoring, automating processes, or predictive maintenance. And similarly, consumer electronic devices heavily depend on connectivity to deliver seamless experiences to users and also to integrate with other devices and services. Additionally, we see several other sectors or development areas where the adoption of network APIs is 10% or above, suggesting that network APIs are valuable across a diverse range of fields and that developers are leveraging different API functionalities in different development areas. Finally, and as I already mentioned when discussing the potential factors that could explain the really low adoption rates of network APIs in Eastern Europe, we see that developers working on web applications or software as a service and backend services show the lowest adoption rates of network APIs at 7 and 6% respectively. So now that we have some context on the adoption of network APIs, let's explore how developers are using these APIs. In the survey, we actually asked about 14 different network API capabilities that we have grouped into 5 categories for this report. So identity, location, network quality or optimization, cloud and edge, and payments. If you're interested in the breakdown of these categories, this is available in the appendix of the report, where you'll find a table with the 5 categories and the APIs in each of them. So focusing on the data now, we can clearly see that identity-related network APIs are by far the most popular, with 84% of developers using network APIs using APIs of this type. These APIs are primarily used to combat fraud and verify user identities, which explains their broad appeal. Within this group, we find functionalities such as one-time passwords via SMS or phone number verifications, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with as users, as you have probably interacted with them at some point. Location-related APIs are also widely used, with 50% of developers using network APIs leveraging at least one API from this category. The most common use case here is device location verification, which is employed by 31% of developers using network APIs. Moreover, we see that over a third of developers who use network APIs use them for network quality or optimization and cloud and edge functionalities. APIs in these categories are crucial for applications that demand high performance, low latency, or efficient use of network resources. And yeah, not surprisingly, we find the highest adoption of these APIs among developers working on embedded systems or industrial IoT projects. And lastly, we have payment network APIs, which are only used by 16% of developers using network APIs. Now, in this last slide, we have a similar but different view. We are focusing only on professional developers here and exploring the differences in the usage of network APIs across organizations of different sizes. Small businesses, those with 2 to 50 employees, medium-sized businesses from 51 to 1,000 employees, and large enterprises with more than 1,000 employees. First of all, and something that is not visible here in the chart, but that we actually looked into, is that smaller organizations use, on average, a smaller number of network APIs compared to medium and large organizations. For instance, around one quarter of small organizations are only using a single network API of the 14 we asked about, compared to around 10% of larger companies. This could be, of course, attributed to factors such as resource constraints, lack of specialized expertise, or the lack of dedicated teams capable of leveraging the full range of network API functionalities. But now going back to the chart, we can see that regardless of company size, the usage of identity, location, and payment APIs remain fairly similar, and that the biggest differences are observed in these two categories here: network quality or optimization, and cloud and edge. This could be related to, at least in part, smaller operations not requiring the same level of scalability or advanced features that larger companies demand or need for their operations. And these categories include functionalities such as connectivity insights to inform optimization, edge discovery, and routing optimization APIs, which might be more relevant for companies with larger operations and where the benefits of leveraging these APIs are more notable due to the scale. So that is all for today. I will like to mention though that we have a lot more data on this topic that didn't make it to this presentation. So if you're interested in data on network APIs, please feel free to reach out to us. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Alvaro, and bringing Bleona back as well. We do have a couple questions. I'm going to start with one for Bleona and one for Alvaro. Um, as the tech space does see a pattern of decreasing developer jobs, this has been in the news a bit, people are talking about it. Do you think AI chatbots will or are contributing to the pattern?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, that's a good question because there is indeed an ongoing discussion about a potential maybe reduction in developer roles, particularly at the junior level, as companies are integrating AI more and more into their workflows. However, I would say the impact varies by industry, by company size, and even by region. So while automation and AI power tools are changing how developers work, they are not necessarily replacing developers outright, but rather shifting skill demands. So we know that historically automation has reduced demand for some tasks, but also has created potentials for new roles. So we may see a shift where these junior developers need to upskill faster, work in AI augmented roles, or transition into areas where still human judgment is needed. And we also saw in our data, for example, that seniors use AI chatbots the most, but junior developers are increasingly relying on them as well. So this might suggest that AI is playing an essential role in skill acceleration, which would make it possible then for juniors to bridge this knowledge gap even faster. So
Mm,
overall, I believe that it would be more about helping or accelerating skills rather than replacing or reducing the number of developers.
thanks so much. I'm going to ask you one more question because I realize we have tons of time. We are
Yeah.
great on time, so I'm going to take the advantage of this. Um, you mentioned about looking at the different industries of space. Are there specific profiles that you see a difference in adoption? Is it by what they're involved in? Is it about work they're doing? Is it about area they're involved in? W- Are you seeing differences between those areas, like if they're web or if they're doing others?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So while we're not really seeing any changes in trends among development areas, nothing noteworthy, there are certainly some differences between development areas. So some are turning more to AI chatbots than others. For example, we see that backend development and web apps are have the highest adoption rates of AI chatbots, where probably developers are more involved in debugging and optimizing code, integrating APIs. So AI tools are more helpful for automating these tasks. In contrast, we see that fields like AR, VR, for example, have the lowest adoption, likely due to being more specialized in nature. So they rely more on 3D
Mm,
modeling or physics engines. So I would say that fields that require real-time constraints or low-level optimization may rely more on domain-specific debugging rather than AI-generated solutions that might help other fields.
Amazing. Thank you for that. We have one more question for you, and then I'm going to move it to Alvaro because someone managed to get in time for a question from you. So she said they noticed that the use of AI chatbots has declined in China. Do we have anything further to explain that?
Yeah, yeah, indeed. So the use in China has declined from 30% to 26%. So honestly,
It's
although we
not
don't
too
have
much
data,
though. Is that,
yeah, it's
yeah,
not
is
a
that
substantial, a
negligible?
significant decrease,
Yeah.
but there's still something to explain about it apart from data. So we know that China has really strict regulations when it comes to AI models and data security in general, and they use their own alternatives, which might not be as advanced or as widely integrated as the one that are common to us. So many popular tools like ChatGPT or Gemini are actually restricted or they're blocked in China, and maybe many developers need to use VPNs to get around all of that, and which would mean that we don't really see a similar effect as we do in other regions. And in all of the other regions, we actually see an increase or at least a stable trend across these 6 months. Hope that answered your
Thank you so
question.
much. Oh, now I got a pop-up. That's the question that we were referring to. Thank you, Rena, for the question. Now, Alvaro, moving towards you. I don't think. Thank you, Ayan, as well for the comment. I don't think that's a question, but let me move towards you, Alvaro. So it was extremely fascinating. It's really interesting. Network APIs are definitely something to watch, and what's happening in the space. Payment net related network APIs seem to be less popular. How do these APIs work, and at what advantage, if any, are they offering to those compared to other payment or take out a pay or checkout options that you have today? So we're seeing that there's a little bit of a difference there that's not really as popular. So why, and if you could add more color to that.
Hmm. So basically, what these APIs do is enable carrier billing. So they eliminate the need for users to manually enter the credit card or other payment information. And just with a simple click and verification, they can complete the transaction, charging the cost directly to their mobile carrier's bill. So basically, two of the main advantages here would be to allow for a smoother checkout experience with less barriers and less steps, which could potentially improve conversion rates. And also, the one that I think is the main advantage is to give vendors access to untapped markets and demographics. So basically, people who might not have a bank account or credit card. But at the same time, it also comes with limitations. So we know the usual checkout methods that we use, so pay by credit card, um, might have greater security and protection against fraud in terms of getting back your money. And also carriers might impose limits um, in the amount of the transaction with this kind of APIs. So those are the two main limitations. And but yeah, it also comes with some advantages.
Totally. I think it's such a fascinating space, the mobile payment space, and how it's enabled economies that, didn't exist before in different regions. I think it's fascinating. It's an area like I'd like to look into more. Um, One more question. Is there anything? I don't see anything else from but I have one more question for Alvaro, and then we could actually close early. We've been extremely efficient on time, and this is great. We'll give some time back to our audience. Um, Trend data on network APIs. So is this too new? Do we have anything? Can we share with the audience?
So this is an area that we've started to track very recently. We started to track network APIs last year, but we do have some more recent data. We just filled our last survey, and the results are in. We have fresh data from 2025, And we see that there
Mm.
has been a slight increase in the use of network APIs from 8% that we were discussing today to 10%. Um, but as we don't have many data points, we've been tracking this for only a year. We still need a bit more time to see if this is a consistent upward trend or if it's just some slight fluctuations around that 8 to 20% to 10%. But it does seem like a small increase.
All right. Thank you so much, Alvaro. Thank you, Bleona. This is the first, and I'll say it again to the audience. This is the first for 2025. We will continue to share free data that we have available, stuff that we'll be publishing throughout the year. We have a paper coming out very soon on the use of Gen AI in business, and that's not necessarily very technical profiles. It's actually opened up to a range of folks that are in the space and maybe using these tools. So trying to get us more information about who's using it and how. And then, yeah, do visit our website, have a look at what we have available. And if you have any further questions, don't be a stranger, just reach out and let us know. Thanks a lot, then, everybody, for joining, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now.